Greetings, people of Earth. Welcome back. My name is Jax, and today we are talking about legacy. I'm currently in the UK visiting family, and I'm thinking a lot about my grandparents and my sort of ancestry coming from a little village in the middle of nowhere in England. And it's got me thinking about how we want to be remembered, what we want to leave behind. And it's kind of funny how much my perspective on this has changed over the last 10 years. I think when I was 18, 19 years old, my thinking was, I want to have this huge impact. I want to make a huge difference in the world. I want to change it. I want to have a big family. I want to make loads of money and build an estate that will one day be handed off to the next generation, and all of this kind of thing. Kind of like the American dream, kind of like, the classic Western ideology of a legacy. And I have to say that I feel completely different now. The idea of legacy for me now is sort of filled with a lot of like self-centered ideas. So what I mean by this is I don't really think I want to really have a legacy. My grandfather has been gone now for 2.5 years. And people still talk about him really fondly. We just had a family dinner last night where my uncle very graciously was talking about him, and we did a toast to him and everything like that. And it really had a strong impression on me. I basically was thinking, what a nice thing, my grandfather isn't here anymore, but we all think of him super fondly, and we wish he was still here, but we tell stories about him and talk about him and his impact on us as a family. I think that's about as much as I want in terms of a legacy, to be fondly remembered by the people who actually knew me. I've done a lot of family history stuff throughout my life. I've done a lot of research and a lot of very meticulous building of a family tree and saving family photos and recording stories and interviewing relatives. But if that's the extent of my legacy, is just doing that family history stuff and then being hopefully fondly remembered by the people who knew me, I think that's good. I think a lot of young people and a lot of very egotistical people want to have this huge legacy, this huge impact on the earth. They want to be remembered. A lot of people talk about the Egyptian idea of you die 2 times in life. You die when you actually die, and then you die when the last person says your name. And I think a lot of people want to be, have a monument built in stone, and they want to be remembered generations and generations from now. And I imagine that a lot of very famous people are comforted by this, or maybe it was one of the inspirations for becoming famous and doing what they do. And I don't think it's much of a vibe. Like, I think we focus way too hard on things that we will never be around for. You will never be around to hear people talk about you in terms of your legacy and your impact. So why do you care? And that's basically my perspective now, is why does anyone care? You're gone. Whether you believe that we are reincarnated or we go up to heaven or nothing happens, no matter what your belief is religiously and philosophically, you will not be here on this earth to witness your legacy play out or anything like that. And so really, legacy is kind of a thing that we think about in terms of the future, but it's only affecting us in so far as thinking about it in the present. And I don't think it's much of a concern. It's not something that I'm particularly worried about, or I'm actively every single day trying to build this thing, because first of all, you can't really build it. It comes down to how you treat people in life, what you do in life particularly. But I think the people that make the greatest legacy in life are the ones that really aren't trying. They're not thinking about it. They're not attempting to be a good person for the sake of being for the sake of people talking about it. They're my grandfather never tried to be remembered well. You know, he wasn't interested in that. He was a very kind and loving person who would speak to you with as much respect as you spoke to him, treated everyone well, didn't destroy the environment, you know, was pretty progressive in a lot of ways. So his reputation and his legacy are, I would say, really good, you know, barring like some long lost aunt or uncle who shows up in the middle of nowhere. Barring that, I think his legacy is a very positive one. And I think that's all I want. I really don't. I don't aspire to be built in stone or to develop something crazy or invent something insane. I just want to live a good life and be there for the people I love. Good enough legacy for me. I don't know about you, but it's really interesting. I was reading a thing about how some of the richest people on earth and how they will be remembered. And 100 years ago, there were these oil barons and these super rich people, Rockefeller, Astor, Carnegie, and they basically wanted to build an incredible reputation and legacy. And so they did a whole bunch of philanthropy at the end of their lives, and they did all of these things to try and support people. But it makes you wonder what their real motivation for it was, because all of these guys basically decided at the same time that they wanted to, you know, be very philanthropic right at the end of their lives. And so you wonder, was this all to try and create a pseudo legacy that they're remembered for? People know about Carnegie Hall, and I don't know. I think the philanthropy in itself is really good, great, you know. You invested in libraries, you invested in this, that, and the other. But if your motivation was purely to be remembered fondly, I don't know if that speaks really well to your character. I'm not hating on them in particular, but I'm just saying it's an interesting idea to think about. How do you actually want to be remembered? Do you want to be remembered at all? Because if I'm being really honest, I really wouldn't mind. Like, after all, I won't be there. I'm not going to be here to be remembered. So is there a real emphasis on leaving a lasting legacy, or maybe just a decent legacy that, you know, people 200 years ago can look up in the family, 200 years from now can look up in the family tree and see my name and wonder, I wonder what their life was like. So I don't think legacy is something you should be losing sleep over. I think you should be far more concerned with questions like, am I a good person? Am I not causing any harm to other people? Am I going to treat everything with respect? Am I going to treat the earth with respect? I think those questions are far more important than wanting to leave some lasting legacy, because you're not going to be there for it. That's all I really wanted to say. I hope you're having a fantastic day, week, month, year, century, millennium, whatever you're having. I hope it's amazing. And let me know your thoughts on legacy and leaving a lasting one. That's all I got for today. Talk to you guys tomorrow.